The 15-Point Plan is part of the Win, Make, Give podcast network.
And welcome back to the 15-Point Plan podcast with your hosts, yours truly, Ryan Gregg, and my partner, Jacqueline Smith. Jacqueline, what is happening?
Hey, everyone. How's it going, Ryan?
Jacqueline, it's going great. And here we are again, another edition of the 15-Point Plan podcast. And before we get into today's content, I just got to say how thankful I am for everybody that's been reaching out over these last couple of weeks saying, Jacqueline, Ryan, we've been listening to the podcast. We've been sharing the podcast. It's so good to hear you on the podcast. So thank you, everybody that's been reaching out to us with your positive feedback in regards to just these last couple of episodes of the 15-Point Plan. Jacqueline, are you getting a lot of people that are reaching out to you as well?
Yes, it's so fun to see people that maybe haven't really been involved with the 15-Point Plan or heard of it before. So kind of some new 15-Point Plan fans and followers. And we are also on Facebook in a Place for Wellness group, and there's lots of engagement in there. So it's been super fun just hearing from new people and seeing a few more newbies adopt the 15-Point Plan in their life.
Yeah, that's right. And as we both know, we've been working with this 15-Point Plan for years, and we just know how much it has impacted us in our health, in our wellness, in our business, in our relationships, really in all the buckets of our lives. And so we've become passionate about sharing this and making sure other people have access to this system that really is going to make sure your energy is high, your stress is low. And Jacqueline, I say it every time that we're performing at the highest level in whatever we're doing.
Yeah, I was talking with some friends yesterday. We were talking about the podcast, and I said, listen, I am hosting the podcast with Ryan, because I love the 15-Point Plan, not the other way around. I don't love it because we're hosting the podcast. I think that's why Chad and Jacqueline thought of us as co-hosts for this, to carry the torch forward, because we were already living with it, and I know you've been a huge champion of it too, and a fan of it. So we love this because of the impact it has had. And I love it even more when I get to see the impact it has on people that I care about. So
absolutely. We love it because of what it's done for us. And when we see something that works for us, I get excited, and I want it to work for other people. When my state gets raised and my energy and my frequency goes up, I want to be around other people that have a high frequency.
Yeah.
And when we check off 10 of these 15 points every day, or if we're checking off 15 out of 15, we are vibrating, Jacqueline, at an incredibly high energetic frequency. And imagine if everybody around us was buzzing like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of my goal, is to get everybody around me really, really, really working on that level too. Right. And today we're jumping into a pretty exciting topic, and it could be maybe the foundation of this all. Some people overlook it. Some people don't really take it as serious as it might be. But as I've been studying over the last couple of years, it's pretty serious, Jacqueline. And that topic is sleep and rest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's underestimated, like you said. And I know for me, if I don't get the right amount of sleep or quality of sleep, then it kind of messes with everything. I'll either skip my workout in the morning, or I might do my workout, but it won't be at the same level of, intensity as I would if I had a good night's sleep. And then I'm just kind of a little grumpier throughout the day. I've got to work harder, right, to be in that great, higher vibe state that I want to be in, and have my energy be positive and high throughout the day. I have to work a lot harder at it when I haven't had a great night's sleep.
Yeah, same. So when in preparing for this podcast and talking about sleep, there's a lot of directions we could go. And we didn't want to talk about the amount of hours one person might need, because we know that's going to change person to person. There's a lot of things that we could talk about, but what I came up with that I thought that I hear a lot about is the issue of actually falling asleep. And that was what I wanted to bring today. And you brought some really good ideas to talk about that as well. But just this topic of actually falling asleep, getting to sleep. And I hear it from a lot of people saying, Ryan, I would love to get up that early, but in order to get up that early, I would have to go to bed earlier. And the biggest problem with going to bed that early is I can't turn off. Mm-hmm. My mind's still going, Jacqueline. I can't turn off. So I started to think, well, what are some things that can help us turn off? What are some things that can help us close that circuit for the day? Mm-hmm. And maybe if we focus on those things and we close that circuit for the day, going to sleep will come a little bit easier. And then getting to sleep and getting good rest will come easier, and we'll feel better. So I asked myself, Jacqueline, why do people have a hard time turning off? What is it that causes at the end of the day to not be able to turn off? And I think the first thing is probably stress. We're thinking about a lot of things. We've had hopefully a very busy and productive day. And now it's the end of the day. And for me, I know one of the things that will help me turn off at the end of the day is making sure that I've reviewed that day and found the wins for the day and seen where I've won for the day. Sure, there's going to be some losses and I can improve on those. But when I can close that day up going, yep, I won there. Yep, I won there. That part of the day is done. And if there was a learning experience, then I can apply that for the next day. And then the next step is taken and, every night I have to turn my alarm on for the next morning because I use an alarm to get up. And what we talked about with that is stacking that action of setting my alarm while I have my phone in my hand, hopefully for the last time of the night, which you're going to get into here in a little bit. While I've got my phone in my hand, let me take a quick glance at my calendar. And you do this differently, and I might actually learn from that. But I like to look at my calendar as I set my alarm and see what I have for the next day. Two reasons. Number one, make sure I'm prepared, make sure I know all my appointments, make sure I know all the important things. But also, Jacqueline, I'm looking for something on that calendar that's going to excite me to get out of my bed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every
Yeah.
Wednesday, every Tuesday night, I go, ooh, look at that. Like, I got to get some good rest. I got to get a good workout in. I got to get my nutrition in. Because look at this, at 11 o'clock, I get to talk with Jacqueline and we get to have some fun recording this podcast. It gets me out of bed. So I'm looking at that calendar to get prepared, but also a little nugget of inspiration so that if I don't want to get up the next morning, I just remember, oh, yep, get up, Ryan, get going. You got big things to do. But you do the calendar differently, Jacqueline.
Well, I love that you look at your calendar and look for inspiration and a reason to get out of bed the next day. I love that. For me, I have found that if I start looking at my calendar, it might prompt me, like I might randomly remember something else, and then I can get activated when I'm trying to settle down. And so I like to look at my calendar before I shut off for the day from work. So a little earlier on in my evening, I'll look at my calendar and review it and cancel anything or reschedule anything that I need to make any adjustments. Then I find that if I can get off of screens earlier, I fall asleep earlier. So when we were talking, I shared Brendan Burchard. I'm a huge fan of his, and I have heard him talk about his sleep formula. He calls it the 3-2-1 sleep formula. And he does 3 hours before bed, no food, 2 hours before bed, no work, and 1 hour before bed, no screens. And so I've kind of worked that backwards, and I'm not perfect at it, but I know if I want to get up at 5 a.m., I have to be asleep, hopefully by 10 p.m. And if I want to be asleep at 10 p.m., I've got to be off my phone by 9 p.m. Because I can go to bed and I'll just start scrolling, and I could go on a scroll session, right, until into the night. So 9 p.m., I want to be off my phone and then work it backwards from there. So food before that and no work before that. So no looking at my calendar when I'm going to bed, unless I'm setting my alarm, I guess earlier I could start doing that and stack it
Right.
with how you do it. I really like the inspiration though that you're drawing from your day. And I think that's important to make sure you have something on your calendar that is inspiring you to get up in the morning the next day. And if you don't have that, I'm going to start thinking about that and making sure that I have something every day that inspires me to get up.
And maybe it's not on the work day. Maybe, for example, Thursdays, I take my son to soccer practice at 4:30 and I'll go run and I'll go train while he's there. And I really love that. So I look at the
Mhm.
calendar, I go, okay, you know what? I really got to be purposeful about my day up until 4 o'clock, because from 4 o'clock on, that's my sun time. And that
Mhm.
inspires me. Like, I really want to be purposeful with that time. I don't want to be working during that time. So
Mhm.
I want to be involved in that time. So that Brendan Burchard sleep, what was it called? Not a framework, but a
So,
sleep.
yeah, sleep 3-2-1 sleep formula.
Yeah, so 3 hours before bed, no food, 2 hours, no work, and then 1 hour before bed, no screens. I'm gonna
Mhm.
I like how you said that about the looking at your calendar at the end of the business day, because what I'm hearing is closing the business day, closing down work for the day. So
Mhm.
maybe I'll work towards that. I really like that. So we've done the 3-2-1. We've had no food 3 hours before bed, no work 2 hours before, no screens 1 hour before, and now we're in our bed and we're sitting there and how we've fallen asleep. So here's a story that came up. I was talking with our technician, Jacqueline, Dave, our technician, really the person behind everything other than our voices, the one responsible for so much with our audio and our visual, not only with the podcast, but at our events. I mean, this guy is a real audio and visual magician. And I was just passing and he said, "Hey, Ryan, I've been doing that box breathing you talked about a couple episodes ago." In fact, it was from an interview when Chad and Jacqueline were still the hosts. I kind of looked at him curious. I said, "Dave, what do you mean? I didn't know you really listened to these." And he said, "Well, you mentioned that box breathing." And Jacqueline, I took that as the biggest compliment, that I said something and it impacted an important person in my life's life.
Yeah.
And he said, "This box breathing thing has actually been helping me sleep." So I wanted to share that because maybe it will help us get to sleep. And I think, Jacqueline, this is where the idea of counting sheep came from.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I think so. I don't have any stats or science to prove it, but that's okay. But here's how it works. We've talked about box breathing on other episodes, or maybe on our wellness calls. Box breathing is a form of breathing where you simply count. So you would count as you inhale. Usually people will start with a 4 count. You'll count. You'll inhale for 4. You'll hold for 4. You'll exhale for 4, and you'll hold that for 4. And you can stay on that 4 rhythm. But what I like to do sometimes, if I need to get into a deeper state, like this is what I do when I'm getting tattooed, because it will put me into this elevated state. I'll go from 4 to 10 and back down to 4. So count of 4 in, hold 4. Count of 4 out, hold 4. Then go to 5. 5 in, hold 5. 5 out, hold 5. Here's what's happening. You're deep breathing. And because you're so focused on your breath and so focused on that counting, maybe it was counting sheep at one time, you're not thinking about anything else.
Right.
You're so in tune with your breath and the numbers and the counting and the focus. For me, it almost works every time that all the thoughts that I had previously are starting to go away because I'm just hearing my breath and focused on that count.
Yeah. It's almost like a meditation, it sounds like, for you.
100%. Yeah, 100% is a meditation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when Dave had shared that, I thought, win, Jacqueline, major win, because what we're doing on this podcast impacted somebody's life. And I hope that somebody listens to this podcast and sends us a message on Facebook or Instagram saying, "Ryan, I tried that box breathing. Jacqueline, I tried that 3-2-1 framework and it worked." Like, that's why we do this.
Yeah.
So we can share some valuable information to make everybody's lives just a little easier, a little more energy, right?
Yeah. I know a lot of people, some of my friends, they're starting to get those, I think they're called Aura rings, and it tracks all your sleep and everything. I mean, that's like next level. For me, I don't really have a hard time falling asleep. I think the only thing that will prevent me from falling asleep is if I have too much caffeine throughout my day. When I was younger, I used to make a pot of tea, like a pot in the coffee maker. I'd put the tea bags in there and I'd make like a whole pot of black tea, and I'd drink that after dinner.
Wow.
While I would read or journal and whatever, I would drink my tea. And I think about that now and I'm like, wow, I cannot believe that I was able to sleep, because I don't know if it's because I've gotten older, I'm in my 40s. And so if I have any caffeine past noon, like even like green tea, the slightest bit, if I have an energy drink, too much coffee, I will not sleep. And so, or I'll sleep, but I won't stay asleep. And so that's been a big thing for me, limiting my caffeine. I don't know. I don't have a problem with falling asleep. I can fall asleep really easily. Maybe staying asleep was one thing I was struggling with a little bit. And I was sharing before that someone led me to these loop earplugs that I started using, and I've been having really deep sleep, uninterrupted deep sleep. So I just got them on Amazon, I think, and they're just come in a cute little case, and I put them in at night and I am out. So
that is so cool. And and I think, we should do one of those episodes where we share additional products like this. There's so many things on the market right now. Well, for anything health and wellness, right?
Right.
The wellness industry is $1 billion industry, but whether it's an earplug or an eye mask, people are talking about taping their lips shut so that they're not breathing through their mouth. The whole breath thing is another conversation of how we breathe.
Yeah.
Whether or not we're breathing through our mouth or through our nose. And some people might People familiar with this? Other people are going, seriously, Ryan? And you know what's even weirder, Jacqueline? You know what that tape is called? It's called hostage tape. So so listeners, go Google hostage tape. Maybe don't Google it because then you're going to get some weird pop.
Yeah, you might get some weird things.
It's, for some reason, they call it hostage tape, but you actually are just taping your lips shut to encourage breathing through your nose. So there's all kinds of products out there.
I feel like that might give me a panic attack, but
yeah, me too. I don't go that far, but I know people that do, and they swear by it. So for our listeners out there, what's one thing that you could take away from this, or shoot us a message? What's one thing that's working for you to help you fall asleep? So it sounds like things to stay away. Don't eat right before you go to bed. Don't be working right before you go to bed. Don't be on your screens right before you go to bed. And I'm with you, Jacqueline. Don't be drinking too much caffeine later in the day, because that will certainly affect your sleep and falling asleep, and like you said, staying asleep. But I would love to hear from the listeners. Shoot Jacqueline and I a message, Facebook, on Instagram, Jacqueline Ray Smith or Bentley's Old Man. What's working for you? What is working for you to get to sleep, to stay to sleep, and to get a good night's rest? Also, while you're letting us know what's working for you, share the podcast. Share the podcast with a friend. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, Jacqueline, and share it with a friend like so many people already have. Take that link, copy and paste it, tag us, share it. Let's keep this movement going, Jacqueline.
Thank you for everything that you bring, Ryan. I love doing this with you. I always learn something from every time we record an episode. And yeah, I love hearing from our podcast listeners and getting feedback. So would love if you would share this with someone that you care about. And we like feedback and love to hear what you're taking away. So next up, Ryan, what are we talking about next episode?
Oh, Jacqueline, one of my favorite things ever. We're talking nutrition or just eating. So let's just talk about eating. We're going to get excited and talk about eating, but of course, I'm going to share eating and nutrition to perform at the highest level. So we'll see you on the next episode of the 15-Point Plan podcast. Again, check us on all social media platforms. Check Win, Make, Give and 15pointplan.com. Until next time, have a great day. We'll see you again.
Bye, everyone.